Welcome back to the No Switch Fitness YouTube channel. I'm super excited to be back doing YouTube content again for you guys. For those of you that are new, just haven't seen the long form content before, I'm Luke Miller, owner of J3 Coaching, also owner and developer of J3 University. My original business was No Switch Fitness, so just kind of developed into this big conglomerate of businesses that we have now. And I love everything about coaching and about pulling more out of athletes' processes. Obviously, we spend most of our time in the bodybuilding realm doing hypertrophy. I still do a little bit of athletic stuff as well. So quite a bit of a mixture on this page, but you get mostly hypertrophy stuff and mostly how to become a better coach, how to become a better athlete, and the things that you need to do in order to improve your ability to train and change your ability to perform and to change your ability to improve your physique. So I'm really excited to dive back in. We'll be doing a lot of content over the next few months, kind of getting back into that YouTube space of doing long form, some in-gym stuff, some how to run a business stuff, some just daily life stuff. So make sure you guys check it out. If there's anything specific you want to see, make sure you let us know in the comments. I'm super excited to be back doing some long form stuff, and we will see you out on the gym floor later today. All right guys, welcome. We're actually at Hidden Gym today. Shout out to Greg McCoy for having us here. We're gonna be doing a lot more sessions in the Hidden Gym gyms. He's got a couple gyms in the area, one here in Allen, which is where we're at today, one in Richardson, and I love the amount of effort that Greg puts into these facilities. It takes a lot of time making sure he picks the equipment. So you'll get to see a lot of that throughout the videos, and we'll talk about why they're beneficial, kind of how to use them. But today we're gonna be doing a little bit of lower body work. Today's just gonna be a session with me walking through some stuff that I'm gonna be doing specifically for my goal set, but also kind of breaking some things down for you guys to use with yourself, use with your clients. So super excited. You can see right now I'm starting with some of the prep work. So this is just access. So getting some stretching in to access different ranges of motion that I might be a little bit limited in. We'll go through activate here in a bit and then integrate it into the start of the session. So every session is gonna have some form of access, activate, integrate. So we'll take you through that today. Just trying to gain some internal rotation access for the femur, and then we'll dive into the session. So you guys are probably a little confused why I got a beanie on in Dallas, Texas. Dylan and I woke up today to snowing sideways in Dallas. And I did not move here to be in snow, but I'm kind of despise the cold, so we're gonna stay warm today. Might peel off a couple layers, but we're gonna dive into some integrate. So integrate for my sessions right now has to do with some direct hamstring work, alongside whatever compound I'm doing for the day. I am nursing a bit of a hand injury, so flexor tendon of my forefinger, and then a little bit of lateral wrist. So usually my first session, or my first movement, compound-wise first session would be a trap bar. I'm just working on some quad glute in a lower hand position with some bracing alongside it. It's gonna be some leg press work today, and we'll talk about why I'm choosing the leg press that I'm choosing. But to integrate that, I will do some hamstring work first as I'm doing my warm-ups on the leg press. So the hamstring work will be work sets, and then we'll actually do some of that leg press work. Just trying to get some direct hamstring work in this session because there's not a lot in this session. I have another session later that has a little bit of like stability work and direct hamstring work for some of my goals this year, which are not fully hypertrophy. So we'll talk about kind of like some difference in the application, but today we're gonna be starting with some hamstring curl, kind of get moving as we integrate some warm-ups on the leg press. Snow falling sideways and some Wheaties in my bowl this morning, apparently. Good grief. Okay, there we go. Just one or two feelers, then get into some work as we move over to leg press. Okay. So some of you may be already scratching your heads a bit. Luke, if trap bars are typically your first movement, why are you moving into a side back squat press that's quad dominant, got that arc that drops off load in the bottom, pushes you into dorsiflexion, takes some glute out? Two reasons for that. One, I don't have the greatest dorsiflexion. I've been working on it as much as I can, but I don't have my squat shoes with me today, so I've just got my barefoot trainers. which I've loved these TYR shoes, but if there's one knock on them, it's not having the ability to use heel elevation in patterns unless I can put a heel wedge under it. So trying to limit the lower back loadings by not putting a bar on my back right now. I do some lower back specific stuff on a different session. And so with that, choosing this pattern allows me to get into dorsiflexion easier because of the arc of the machine and the way that the plate actually moves. And then I also have a second pattern that has some glute work in it, which you'll see later in the session, that will just kind of make up for not having the trap bar in place. So just kind of breaking it into two patterns. So major compound with some quad bias to it, and then we'll have a secondary pattern that's got some glute in it. So you guys will see that in a bit, but just a few more warm-ups and then we'll get rolling into work sets. All right, for my hypertrophy friends there, the goal with seated hamstring work is lengthen hamstring. So I have this cam position on 5 to bias it towards the lengthen, but not load all the way in the lengthen. Basically just trying to be as efficient as possible with my stimulus. I don't get a lot of direct hamstring work in this program design, so I want my hamstring work to be as efficient as possible. So I've got some lengthened work here with the seated hamstring curl, and then most of the other stuff is hinge based. Now I know you're gonna say like, well, where's your shortened in-range work? I am getting some shortened here in the seated hamstring curl. It's still loading some shortened, but I'm trying to create as much of a robust stimulus as possible. So I'm gonna have seated hamstring curl in this session and then my hinge work on the other session. If bodybuilding was your sole focus, that other session is where you would do the lying hamstring curl, the single-legged hamstring curl to get some shortened in-range work. And so that's kind of why my brain goes to seated hamstring out of the gate, loaded towards the lengthening, because I'm trying to be as efficient as possible with my stimulus. Something I see a lot with people trying to train to failure or get the most out of these, like, especially these machine-based patterns, is like that last rep where I fell and it just came to a halt halfway. That's still a great stimulus from that rep, right? I don't have to shift my hips to get it all the way and actually remove how much quality of the stimulus I got from that, or have to complete that rep for it to be something that's 100% quality. Where the quality comes from is position maintenance and driving tension to the target tissue. So just because you fail doesn't mean the rep should change to complete it, or just to have something in your logbook written down as an extra rep. The question Dylan posed was like, are you supersetting or what are you doing? This is my integration piece. So if I felt pretty bad during the movements section, like the prep work section, I'd be doing more prep work while I'm doing the seated hamstring curl. Felt pretty good today, so moving pretty well. So I'm actually just doing my work sets on the seated hamstring curl while I do warm-ups over here. So that's like my integration portion of the section. So if I felt like more integration needed to happen, I'd probably do something like a single-legged RDL into a walking lunge as more prep work while I'm doing my seated hamstring curl work. So just because I feel pretty good today, as far as movement quality goes, I'm not doing that work, but that's how prep work's supposed to be. Just do enough to get yourself ready for the session and then do the session. All right, so nursing the hand injury, I'm bringing in a new movement I haven't done 2-3 months maybe. So with the first work set, I'm erring on the light side of what my target rep range is gonna be here. For a few reasons. One, I don't have my squat shoes, which is the whole reason I chose this pattern. Secondary, I haven't done this pattern in a long time, so there's a sense of lack of skill acquisition. I just haven't gone through those first weeks of readapting to moving in this pattern. So when you have that in those first few weeks, it's always better to err on the lighter side, even if you miss your rep range. Like, rep ranges are suggestions for adaptation. They're not rules. So we should always live by that and just apply force as we can apply force. Not too bad. Not too bad for first week.
What was that, 11?
12, I think. I don't know. I didn't count. I'm just trying to get to like a proximity to failure. A lot of my stuff now is like around improvement in performance. I might have some like sport specific stuff I'm trying to do this year. So I'm, with this compound work, like want it to be kind of hypertrophy so that I can maintain like the tissue that I have. Stepping away from bodybuilding, I obviously downsized quite a bit. I pulled myself from like 260 down to 220 that I sit now, 215, 220. So there's some hypertrophy work in here, but really the biggest thing is proximity to failure should be as close to failure as possible when you're driving hypertrophy as your primary stimulus. Where for me, with some of the sport specific stuff, I'm not always training to full failure. So it's been an adjustment, but yeah, I think it was 12-ish, but I'm more so looking for proximity to failure, which is where the rep ranges or suggestions things comes from, right? Like if you're training for hypertrophy, put your headphones on, take it till you can't move, and drive that hypertrophy adaptation. Because that's what you're looking for more than anything. I know I'm gonna get the question, so I'm just gonna address it now before y'all start in the comments. Yes, I am getting a little bit of pelvic tilt in the bottom of this leg press, which I know you guys are like, aren't you Mr. Stable Ribcage Pelvis guy? Yeah, because most of y'all live on the side of the spectrum where it's not connected well to maintain a brace. Some pelvic movement is okay. I'm not taking it to a place where I'm getting any lower back, any erector involvement. Like I have no lower back pump. A little bit of tilt's okay. Most of you guys live in so much ribcage expansion or anterior pelvic tilt or both that you get excessive movement that takes away from your ability to output force. So yes, there is some here. Before you comment warriors get in there, some's okay. Where it's gone too far is where it becomes a problem for injury or for performance or for both. So there you go. One of my pet peeves is like, I use this and it feels good, so you should too. We're talking about this new row piece at a different gym that's like, you're seated in it and it's like on a sled. It's like someone tall or someone short, it's gonna be horrible for. But like that one person who just happens to coach too, it's like perfect for them if they then tell everybody they need to use this piece. It's like, it's not a one size fits all piece, right? So that's a pet peeve of mine.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
That felt pretty good. All right, that'll be it for that. Head over and do some split squat work. Talk about some of its potential benefits and go from there. I think we'll talk about some volume stuff a little bit later in the session, but my landmarks for me are pretty low right now for a few reasons, but I need to be able to go do things outside of the gym from a performance perspective. So my volume is quite a bit lower because I'm spending recovery capacity on that stuff. So I have to be pretty careful in here. So there's a few things from this sessions. If like you're a hypertrophy athlete, you'll need to add a little bit more. Like the hamstring curl, I only did 2 work sets. If hypertrophy is your goal, should be doing 3 or 4 probably. But we'll talk about that as we go through because my landmarks are pretty low for the direct hypertrophy type work. Guys, pay attention. There's no more plates in the leg press so that someone can come back and use it to the load that they want. It's not that hard. If you put it on there, you can put it back. All right, guys. We're gonna go use the belt squat for the best thing a belt squat's made for, split squats. And I say that in jest because belt squat has application in 1 or 2 scenarios, but there's very few. And a lot of the reasons that I use this for split squat is how high this back piece is. So when you're in the split squat, how high that back foot is can affect like how far that femur's pushed back and into internal rotation. Most of you aren't good enough at this to do it on like a regular bench height, because if you walk over here, like if you were to do a split squat on this, you're having to go into like a lot of forward tilt just to get that leg up, a lot of extension internal rotation. You're gonna limit your range just because this has nothing left to go, right? So most of you ditch the bench, find something a little lower, and let's do some split squat work. The quads are more pumped than usual because the rep range is a bit higher on that than with the trap bar work. So it's a little bit closer to hypertrophy adaptation than it is strength. So we'll see how this goes. I love this gym. And there's like more in the back. But man, like, you can do so much here. This time of day, there's like no one here. You got like all the prime pieces you would want in a gym. You got some cool Cybex pieces. Just training. I love like gyms like that they put a lot of effort into. The things that they do, right? It's like even this, like a lot of gyms go with the Atlantis version of the lateral raise, but I'm not a fan of the Atlantis version. I kind of prefer this one because like the height's a little bit closer to what you would see, and it's a bit more adjustable for shorter people. And you can like move this to the height that you would need, even if you're standing too tall. So it's nice, like it's just little things like that. So nice. So nice. The hard part with like training now is I love bodybuilding and hypertrophy, but like from a strength perspective and a hypertrophy perspective for like some of my goals in a different arena this year, like I'm already past what's needed for that. But I love training with you guys, clients. It's like I'm always gonna keep hypertrophy work in. It's like I have sessions that have mostly hypertrophy work with a little bit of functional stuff, which is like today, and then I have like a separate session that's like almost all sports stuff. But I have to find variations that have carryover in multiple ways, and this is actually one of those. It's like single leg expression so that I can like, this is not direct challenge of stability, but it's a minor challenge in stability, but it's also force output and unilateral speed into the floor. So if you're doing this as like, like pure power speed work, you think like box jump or like unilateral body weight explosive work, but I'm using like a pattern that could be used in both realms and just changing the execution to get a little bit of the other adaptations. Because I just love my training sessions with the bodybuilders still, because it's what I coach, it's what I win shows in, so it's always gonna have some aspect of that. But love a split squat. Y'all hate it when I write in your programs. But then you look at your leg development after working with me for a year and a half. Then you thank me for the split squats. Because we learn how to do them right, we execute them well, we get a lot of stimulus out of it. And that's where you see a lot of these side-by-sides, especially like some of the wellness girls who don't know how to get glute out of it. You can see a lot of my wellness transformations are massive changes in glute development. A lot of that's the work we spend one-on-one in the coaching setting, fixing execution, learning how to bias glutes. We'll talk about that some today too. I've got a couple sets here, and this is actually the pattern that involves some glute that I was talking about earlier. Client work. Never ends. It's during the day, I'm always on the clock. It's like people in prep oftentimes have questions that are need a quicker response. Because most of my people like are advanced athletes, so they're not like asking newbie questions. So if they need me, like they need me. So it's hard to put it on airplane mode for that stuff, especially when like I typically devote that airplane mode time for Emily. Like I really focus. I only get so much airplane mode time, so I decided to use that on my wife rather than my gym session. I know you guys love bodybuilding, but your wife is more important than your gym session. Believe it or not. So, why am I doing a personal page again? Honestly, I think it's because I have a lot that I want to share that I don't get to share when it's just about bodybuilding. Like, my life's revolved around bodybuilding. I love the sport. I love coaching it. I love the businesses that we have in bodybuilding. But like what we're about to do here is a great example of what I call lateral thinking. Like for those of you who know who I am and like my education background, like have a mechanical engineering degree, a master's of science in exercise physiology from USF. I did my CSCS. I spent time doing strength and conditioning. I obviously done all the work that I've done in the bodybuilding space for the last 10, 11 years, building courses that have elevated the game in regards to education for bodybuilding and physique sports. I just finished my Titleist Performance Institute TPI certification for like golf specific performance. So there's a lot of stuff that I do myself. There's a lot of stuff that I do if it's like an athlete that I'm working with that I don't get to share a lot with y'all. So this part of the session is actually a great example of what I call lateral thinking. It's like I'm putting it here in this session because of the outcomes I want, but this is a great tool for hypertrophy athletes as well and bodybuilders as well if there's a problem with this in this athlete. So I have like lead hip internal rotation issues, lead hip internal rotation deficiency, which for hypertrophy athletes is a big problem in squatting and leg pressing and things like that. For sports, like especially rotational sports, if you're loading into that lead leg, it needs to be able to internally rotate to fully clear and transfer force. A lot of this comes from like iliopsoas issues because we sit all day. And we sit all day because I run 3 businesses. So like, this is a great one in like prep work for a bodybuilder that I'm actually doing as a part of the session. So it's like unilateral flexion under load with contralateral glute, holding the pelvis in position, going through flexion while you hold that glute contraction. You'll really feel that iliopsoas light up and then kind of go down in here. So all just like going through hip flexion. And I won't do many reps. I'll do 3 to 5 here because I'm trying to load it and make it stronger. And you'll see I'll start to struggle at this point because a lot of people who struggle with like internal rotation deficiency have both an access problem, so the mobility to get into positions, but also strength problems and the ability to resist force in those positions as well. So we have to take it through flexion. So we'll do a separate video of like what treatment plans could look like all the way from the chiropractor's office to the functional work you do, to the in-session work you do at a later date. But this is a great one that done a little bit lighter before a session for people who struggle with this. Man, it can be a game changer for squatting better, doing your leg compound work. So a lot of you guys need this, so I would try it. It's a great one. So I'll do 3 to 5 reps, 2 to 3 sets each. I do this twice a week because I'm working on getting like stronger through the hip flexors to be able to resist force when I do go into rotation. You'll see this side's quite a bit better because my right side doesn't have as much of a deficiency. So you can see like I'm moving through that so much smoother. Oh. I'll knock out, like I said, 2 to 3 sets depending on how I'm feeling. God, that's so effing hard on my weak side. Such a big discrepancy leg to leg. You'll notice because of that, I'm always doing left leg first. Because like for my application, it's the problem leg It could be the right leg too if you had a problem there, but for me specifically, it's the leg that gives me the most issues. In high school, yeah, I had a medial meniscus tear, but that wasn't what led to it. I've always, talking and training doesn't go well. I've always had issues with like that left side internal rotation, even when I was younger. It's just gotten worse now that I sit all day and like work on things. So it's always been a problem, but you combine that with dorsiflexion that's a little bit lacking, the medial knee injury, it just makes it worse, right? Because you can actually offset hip rotation with excessive dorsiflexion. That's why if you ever see me squatting, I've always got heel elevation, because if I can dorsiflex appropriately, then I can offset the lack of internal rotation here and get as much performance out of squat patterns that I need. So it's like, it's all a system, right? Like the body moves in an alternating fashion of stable and mobile joints. So mobile joints like your ankle move in all planes of direction, your hip moves in all planes of direction, your knee's a hinge joint, and it's alternating all the way up. Like you can even do this up the spine if you want to get really nitty gritty, but yeah, so you can offset deficiencies by getting better at something else. So it's like a great way for workaround, especially for you guys that are trying to fix problems, like address the problem, but find another way to be able to train right now. And that's how we create athletes that get to the highest levels, because they're always performing at the highest level, just in different expressions by doing the long-term work to fix the problem, but finding a different way to express that force through other patterns and setups. Ignore the hair. I need a haircut. And the beanie's gotta come off. We've gotten to the point in the session where I'm hot enough and don't need it. If you're a bodybuilder though, the rest of your session would look like some direct adductor work on an adductor machine with probably some quad extension work, as this would definitely be like a quad bias session. Potentially, you could argue that there needs to be a squat at the start of a session as well, but I love it with hypertrophy athletes if they've got 2 leg days, separating the leg press and the squat work, because I think it works really well for getting the most out of it, especially if it's a focal point for you. So choose that first compound as you may, but this session is a great setup, especially for someone who's struggling with knee pain through squatting. Like you could just run this exact session and get a ton of hypertrophy stimulus out of it. It's a great setup. So if you're bodybuilding, go do your quad extension work, go do your adductor work, and then wrap it up from there. Just make sure the set quality is really high. It'll be plenty for you to grow. Great leg day at Hidden. We're bringing this back for y'all. So tell me what you guys want to see. We're gonna do a ton of training stuff. We're gonna do business stuff, like how to run a business, things you need to know, just free value on that side. We're gonna kind of dive into the things that I'm doing outside of business as well. Just kind of like some personal goals that I have. But you guys tell me what you want to see down in the comments below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe, and turn those notifications on so that you guys see this content that we're gonna be pumping out for y'all. I will be paying attention to what you guys tell me you want, so put it down in the comments and we'll definitely get that content filmed and ready for y'all. Super excited to be diving back into the YouTube space personally. So, and major shout out to Greg at Hidden Gym and kind of the owner of all the Hidden Gym conglomeration. It's gonna be awesome to have spaces to be able to film in, try different equipment, and just looking forward to sharing that with y'all. So until next time, take no off switch in the pursuit of results.